Hello and welcome to Marketing Media Money on CNBC Africa. My name is Giamo Mosebele. Emerging brands have a few challenges that they battle with as they grow. These are challenges such as finance, marketing, and market penetration, as well as sales. Today, we find out from marketers what it takes to promote an emerging brand and what is required to continue seeing it grow. Joining me in studio is DJ Lodwig, the Managing Director of Network BBDO. Then we have Siwela Masonga of Siwela Wines and Violet Amorbeng, the founder of Skin Gourmet in Ghana, joining us both via Zoom. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show. Upon this deep dive into the world of marketing, looking at how we describe emerging brands is very important. DJ, just looking at yourself from your position as agency, one, how do we define an emerging brand? And is there appetite for marketing of emerging brands?
I'll answer your second question first. Yes, absolutely. There's appetite for marketing of emerging brands. An emerging brand is any brand, whether it's well-known or new and up and coming, that is entering into a market for the first time. I think a lot of people think that an emerging brand is something that is new, that has never been heard of before, but often there could be a number of global brands that are doing very well outside of the continent or outside of the country that people have heard of before, but are coming into the market for the first time, and those would be emerging as well.
Mm-hmm. And what does marketing an emerging brand entail?
So I think it's first about making sure that the brand becomes relevant to the people that it's targeting, making sure that when they do enter the market, they have the right insight, that they have the right understanding of the people that they're going to try and sell their products to. And I think it's important that that they develop strategies, whether they have the big budgets or not, that's really going to engage the customers that they want to talk to. It's not just about advertising a product on TV or on a digital platform and expecting people to really resonate with it. I think emerging brands definitely need to play a role in culture, to understand how to talk to people in the language, in the way that they would most understand, in a way, and demonstrate how their products serve a real purpose in their lives, make a real difference.
And now this is where I want to bring in our brands. DJ just walked us through some of the ways in which emerging brands can take advantage of their pulse on culture, on people, and how they can leverage that for their own personal impact. So over to you, Siwela. I want to know, you're no stranger to this environment as an emerging brand. What worked for you when penetrating into the market?
I think the biggest thing that worked for me was storytelling, continuously telling the story of who Siwela is, how I got into the space of winemaking, which we all know and have known it to be white and male dominated, and also just sharing our vision with our customers and everybody else, just really going strong in terms of storytelling. I think that's the biggest thing for me.
And would you say your journey was the same, Violet, as what Siwela has shared?
Hi, Siwela. Nice to meet you. I love your work, by the way. So I think yes, but no at the same time. For us, we didn't focus so much on the storytelling. We focused more on the product. And what I mean by that is it was about how we expose it to the customer and ensuring that we created a product that talks for itself. In other words, one thing that was really worked well for us was word of mouth. So by developing a product that did wonders for the clients, they told other people, and that's how sort of this name Skin Gourmet grew.
Mm-hmm. So in essence, the parts that I've gotten from you, from Siwela and Violet, is the strong storytelling impact, and additionally engaging very intimately and closely with your target audience, yes, or your target consumer. When we look at an overhead approach, are there specific advantages that emerging brands can leverage over bigger and more established brands in marketing?
Yes, I think so. I think the smaller brands or the new and upcoming brands have the opportunity to tell their story authentically and create a new narrative. You know, established brands that have been around for a long time who are trying to change and move with the category or with the consumer, it's difficult for them to do that because they have a very established sort of brand narrative and brand story, where somebody that's up and coming can sort of navigate it a little bit differently, can be a little bit more guerrilla about it on the ground, talking to people, you know, and really engaging with people on the level, on that ground level. And I think that develops authenticity of the brand story. And like Suella was saying, when you're telling your brand story, when you're telling them what makes your brand different or your product different, I think in that authentic way, on a one-to-one kind of level, it helps build that authenticity and trust in your brand. And let's face it, consumers are not brand loyal, and very few of them really trust what the big brands say. So the smaller brands have the opportunity to really build brand trust and then desire through differentiation.
So the opportunity is there to almost fill in the gap where
Yes.
the large and more established brands are not able to necessarily intimately interact.
Yes.
But while we're painting this picture of so much opportunity, what is the disconnect then? If there is opportunity for growth in this approach, what is needed, or how do you help emerging brands if they were to work with you to grow their footprint?
So I think the first thing is obviously to understand the market that you're entering. And a lot of consumers are, I said earlier, they're not brand loyal, but they also use the product that they use religiously. You know, once you found something, whether it's a beauty product or whether it's a beverage of whatever sort, you kind of stick to what you know. So when a new product comes in or a new brand comes in, they have to demonstrate a differentiation point that actually makes a difference, that will stand out, that will get people talking about it, that will get them interested in using it. And that's really important in growing the emerging brand. So when we work with any brand, the first thing is to understand what the market is using currently, where the gap is, what would make them interested in your product, what is the differentiating point, and then how do we deliver that to them in the most authentic way.
And over to my brand voices who have joined me here today, I think it's also important to get insight from your end. As both of you have entered the market, you've been in the space for over a decade respectively. You've seen what works. But I want to know from you now, as you're looking to scale and grow, in your approach to marketing, what do you need, or what are you looking to improve? I'll start with you, Violet.
So I think for us, one thing that's really worked for us is, again, I think DJ touched on it, which is authenticity. We can really decide we want to play on the storytelling part, which I hear a lot of brands talk about. Like, the first thing is storytelling. But for us, we realize that the story continues to evolve. So for us, we first targeted a problem, which is that, okay, we have African producers who are supplying the whole world with African raw materials, and somehow they're getting left out. How do you close that gap, but do it with a product that the rest of the world wants? And so we decided to come up with Skin Gourmet, which we take the raw materials from Ghana or Africa, and then we transform them into high-end finished goods. So by trying to solve this problem, we created a solution, and in that solution is where we found the storytelling. So as time goes on, it evolves, and customers are more interested in it. And again, like DJ said, because of the differentiation of what your product does. So we took what is already African tradition, which is edible skincare, and made that more commercial. And so by telling the story and also placing it and saying that, yes, these are products you can actually eat, this is actually African, we were able to tell a different narrative, as well as be able to stand out when it comes to branding.
And I want to stay on the point that you made about how your story keeps on evolving. And in a consumer or marketplace that you are starved of attention and you're looking to kind of rise above in a very competitive space, what are some of the objectives you have in place now to continue evolving your story?
So I think that's the interesting thing. You said competitive space. And I think for us personally, for me personally, it's very difficult to stay on the right path if you're constantly looking at your competition. So what we did was we focused on the problem. and focused on the products, making sure that the products solve our customers' problem and making sure that our supply chains were authentic, they were fair, and they created equity. And so by just focusing to make sure that we solved a problem for the consumer, we did not divert, gave them proper customer service, and ensured that everybody in our supply chain was adequately served and everything was fair. That's how I believe that we are creating a niche or creating a name for ourselves, because we can be trustworthy.
So almost drown out the noise and focus on your specific offering. And I think, Violet, I draw parallels between yourself and Siwela because you both offer a very niche entrance into the market, whether it be you offering this African skincare, which is also edible, but Siwela, your penetration into the market as a Black female-owned winemaker. Is your storytelling almost also very deeply intertwined with your personal vision and mission as a Black woman entering the industry?
Yes, 100%. And I think, like Violet said, it's very profound what she said and what she shared. And I feel the same about, even my industry and how, the marketing aspect of it is going. And most importantly, I think, what I've experienced is that we want to work more with, collaborate more, work more with influencers, work more with other brands, and of course, aligning the vision of Siwela Wines together with where we want to be. So I think, yeah.
Just also continuing on, an important factor also is building credibility while you're marketing yourself. Are there any lessons you've learned from the beginning until now?
100%. Credibility is very important. And I think that's one of the advantages of my brand because, coming in, I'm a biotechnologist that turned, a whole science career into a thriving winemaking career, whereas most people would start off with, an enology degree or viticulture. But I think just having that strong background in both science, winemaking, and all two service has helped me a lot. So, and I work very hard to make sure that even myself and my personal space, I develop myself by taking a lot of courses that are relevant to, winemaking, business, and as well as marketing. So even digital marketing. So I spend a lot of work also researching on that. So I do think it's very, very important.
You made quite an interesting point also in terms of your educational background. And I can imagine as an emerging brand, as you work to establish yourselves as entrepreneurs and as leaders of these organizations, you wear many hats. What role has yourself, educating yourself and empowering yourself with the necessary tools, played with how well your brand has performed?
It's highly important, but I've also recently learned that in as much as when we start off wearing many hats, it's important that you let some of those tasks be done by other people. My business has suffered significantly because I wore all the hats of my business. And that meant that people were waiting very long to get responses because I'm busy with other things throughout the day. People were waiting very long to get their invoices. Customers, our existing customers were paying late because I'm unable to follow up with invoices and a whole lot of things that happen in a business. And that is one way to kill a business. But it is important because at the beginning, we can't afford to hire many people. We can't even afford to hire, professionals to help us with all these things. We can't even be able to commit to a salary to say, okay, every month I'll pay 10,000 to salaries, of which it's something that we will do. But I think every entrepreneur or every business owner, you learn as you go. But those are just some of the things that I've experienced. And you want to be able to understand your business from start to the end so that in the future, when your employees, you can understand the frustrations that your employees are going through. I just recently saw a picture that I took back in during COVID, just post-COVID, where I was doing deliveries. And I took a picture with one of the customers that I was delivering the wines to. And for me, that made me realize that, wow, I do come from way back, because at that time I was still delivering my wines door to door to each and every customer that purchased. But you know what that meant? It meant that the whole day, while I'm busy out there delivering products, I'm not able to take in new orders. So it kills the business.
Yeah. Violet, I then go over to you. Suella just painted a day in the life of a leader of an emerging brand, and we can see that the average entrepreneur is spread quite far and wide. When we look at the tools that are at your disposal as an emerging brand, in your lesson or in your playbook, what would you say works the best?
Okay, so I first of all have to agree 100% with Suella, completely. But I think when it comes to educating yourself as an entrepreneur, one thing I really like she says, it'll kill business if you focus on everything at once. But I think as an entrepreneur, you need to focus still on the problem. So the problem that your brand or your business is trying to solve, you need to be very well acquainted with it. And sometimes we tend to think of it more in the sales end. So for Skin Gourmet, because we're trying to solve a problem within Africa, we had to understand our communities, which means you need to understand the issues that they're having before you can come up with solutions that work. But even in trying to find the solutions that work, you must, number one, educate yourself on the problem at hand, your customer's problem, your stakeholders' problems. But then you have to also educate yourself on how to solve that problem. So for us, we realized that, yes, Africa has all these issues, but another reason why Africa is being left behind is because even our practices are not sustainable. So as much as we may complain about Africa being exploited in terms of raw materials, there are reasons for those problems, such as the lack of proper infrastructure for processing, as well as we don't have sustainable ways to grow our raw materials, and that creates an volatility in the market. So then I had to get the tools and learn about sustainability. But like Suella said, you can't do that if you're wearing all the hats in your business. You have to get to a point where, like right now, if you ask me for the price of a product, it might be a bit difficult for me to figure it out for you because that's now someone else's job. But that's the thing, you must constantly evolve in your business. So at first you start with wearing every hat, but then as the load gets heavier, you have to learn how to share and redistribute it. So you still keep the problem at hand forefront, which is how to solve the problem your business was created to solve.
Violet, you made mention of pricing, and that actually leads me to a question that I'd also like to explore. How important is pricing in your consideration and in your marketing strategy?
So for us, pricing is extremely important. So it's a mixture of trying to understand how much your customer is willing to pay for the product, and also the perception of the value of the product, as well as looking back to see how much you're paying to, I guess, assemble that product. Not just the actual cost alone, but the premiums involved in making sure that the people who supply you are also well taken care of in that whole supply chain. So for us, it's very tricky and we need a lot of feedback. Also because our distribution channel is not just with one particular type of customer. We serve 3 different type of customers. And so you have to understand the give and take there. There are certain customers that require you to give more, and certain other customers are willing to give more because they support, like what Suella said earlier, your story, they understand your mission. So it's really a delicate balance.
Now, DJ, I want to steer the conversation back to you. I think it's so important, the lay of the land that we've gotten from our emerging brands. Besides their consideration on marketing, it's the problems that they seek to solve. But in this space, when we specifically then look at marketing, if we look at billboards, if we look at advertising, those are very cost-intensive projects. And then we only look at digital marketing as the more accessible way a brand can market itself. What would you say in your experience works the best for emerging brands when they're dealing with very few and limited resources?
I mean, obviously, digital marketing is the easiest way in, right? We all kind of have access to these things, and we all live on social media, so we kind of know how it works. But at the same time, there's a large portion of the population on the continent that don't have the same kind of access as we do. So if you focus all your efforts on digital marketing, you're going to miss a lot of people who either can't afford the data that is associated with, or they don't have the right devices, etc. Like that's still a huge problem in Africa. So when it comes to, I mean, and Violet speaks like a marketer. Everything she said is the entirety of marketing as a whole. And when it comes to then reaching out and promoting your products, there's a couple of ways in. I suppose the first is to really understand who your core target audience is. So you really, really focus your energies on the people that you know are going to be interested in your brand and your product, and then find a way in there. Things like on the ground little activations, or if you can get into malls, those stands and whatever, where you can interact with people, are probably a good way to, because also the kind of products that they're selling is stuff that you probably want to test out, you want to smell it, you want to taste it, you want to see, how it works. And sometimes online doesn't work very well for that. And yes, like the above the line media can be really, really expensive, and it's a huge investment to go there. But word of mouth, one of the ladies said it earlier, is probably the best and quickest way to get your product out there. If you can get a couple of nano influencers, it doesn't have to be your macro big celebs or whatever, get a few nano influencers in the market that you're interested in and get them to just talk about your product and promote it. And then the people who have already tried your product, get them to post it on their own social media pages and as act as brand ambassadors for you. And the word of mouth is actually what works best, I think, for emerging brands that are up and coming as such.
But for an emerging brand that has now or is now interested in expanding their reach, is there an opportunity or a platform to collaborate with yourselves as agency?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of emerging brands and businesses kind of think, I can't afford to pay an agency to do this work for me. But, there's different ways in. We can talk about, they spoke about wearing different hats, and in many instances, they do a lot of the work themselves, but perhaps they need help with strategy specifically. And we can have a conversation about how we deliver a strategy for you, and you can go and then show you how you can produce it and get your message out there on the correct platforms. And that's all we service you on. Or all you need is the creative idea, and we can do that for you, and then you go and then show you and enable you to go and produce it yourself. And there's different ways to engage with an agency. You don't necessarily need the full service.
Sure. And I'm just intrigued looking at these two brands, both from West Africa and here in Southern Africa. And I then pose the question to you, as you've made your mark and now entered into the market, for the consumer looking or interested in your brand, what would you say to them as we leverage that personhood or that intimate interaction that DJ has mentioned, Violet?
In terms of what would we say to the customer, I think for us, just going back on what DJ said, one thing that really helps us with exposure is also in product placement. Like she said, getting people to try things. For us, we always ask the customer to take a look at, first and foremost, your health and then the environment. Like, it's really important how you are interacting with everyone else. So we like to say, look at what you're putting on your skin and evaluate, is it actually safe enough to eat? And then they ask us why we're asking you that. I'm like, you do realize everything you put on your skin is absorbed into your body. But even more than that, think about when it goes down the drain. It affects waters, it affects land. And then on top of that, too, it's important that you find out that these brands that you purchase from, we all have to be held accountable. How are we producing? And how is what it is that we're producing affecting other people in our value chain? So I think as consumers, even if you're not buying skincare, it's important that we always evaluate our impact on the world. And one way you can see that is by how you spend money. You have to hold people you spend money to accountable. And I think if we did that, the world would be much better.
And I'll pose it to you as well, Siwela. When you're looking at your new and next consumer, what would you say about them being skeptical or still not sure about embracing Siwela wines?
I do believe that they will still be very sure of, and be very proud to, enjoy and be associated with Siwela wines. Currently, that's what's happening. A lot of our customers are our brand ambassadors. They love the brand. They love the story. They understand and they understand and they support the vision. And I think, as Violet said, businesses, the story itself evolves. the vision evolves, the business itself evolves. And I've also experienced that within my brand. When I started this brand, it was just about, my passion for wine, producing wine, and, it evolved more into something that is more experiential. So it moved from just a bottle of wine to being a complete experience. And I think with that, it also helps, to grow with the customers, to say, okay, you've enjoyed a bottle of wine, but you can come and enjoy this experience at Siwela Wines that you have never experienced anywhere else, or that you have never experienced with Siwela Wines. And I think for me, going forward, these are the kind of offerings that we'll be focusing on, not only to keep the customers that we have, but to retain the new ones, and obviously keep the ones that we have engaged and interested. So I do believe that going forward in the next few years, our customers will still be interested. I'm sure things will change, trends change, and we will have to evolve with that as well.
Yeah, and DJ, I also want to know from your end, looking forward, is there an appetite for emerging brands, and what can they do to prepare for the future?
There's absolutely an appetite for emerging brands. I think, it doesn't matter how many products come into our country in South Africa or anywhere else in Africa, there's always an opportunity for improvement, for innovation, for change. And when I listen to Violet speaking about how passionate she is about sustainability, those are the kinds of stories that people really become interested in. When you listen to an African female that has now started her own winery, that's an interesting story that people, and I think more and more these emerging brands are coming up with interesting stories that really make measurable change to the planet, to the people that they're servicing. So there's absolutely an appetite for it. And I think as entrepreneurs are thinking about what they want to do, I know there's so many different ideas and so many different things that we could do. Try and find the most specific thing that you are passionate about and run with that thing. Because when you're passionate about something, you put all your energy behind it. You're willing to wear all the different hats. You're willing to find the people that are going to help you build your brand. And you're willing to make sure that when you bring it into the market and you start talking to people about it, they feel your passion, and that's actually what drives the brand success.
I must say it is deeply inspiring to be talking about, these new and innovative products that are making way into the market. And here I'm joined by an all-female cast.
Yes.
And it's actually particularly in line with our public holiday, or our Women's Month celebration here in South Africa. But ladies, I could go on and on about some of the innovations you have made and the sustainability, particularly yourself, Violet, that you aim to propel forward on behalf of Africa onto the rest of the globe. But that's unfortunately where I have to wrap the episode. And that brings us to the end of Marketing Media Money here on CNBC Africa, as we explored marketing emerging brands. I'd like to thank my guests, DJ Ludwig. She is the Managing Director of Network BBDO. We then go over to our ladies who have joined us on Zoom. That is Suela Masonga, the founder of Siwela Wines, as well as Violet Mwabeng, the founder of Skin Gourmet in Ghana. From me, Kiamo Mosapele, thank you so much for joining us. It's goodbye for now.